Hello and welcome to the Sober Experience, formerly known as the Spiritual Experience, where we share stories of overcoming problematic situations in life through triumph and working together, as well as recovery topics and all other forms of spirituality, self-help, and the like. I'm your host, Jay Lewis, and here we go. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back, Sober Experience. You know the deal. Share, like, and subscribe on all podcast platforms. Also on YouTube, you can find us, The Sober Experience. I just threw my keys. And, yeah, man, we're out here. We're doing it, dog. We're not playing any games. It's Easter Sunday. I looked on my schedule. I was like, oh, man, I was supposed to record a Dolo solo. And, yeah, I fell asleep at the wheel, so here we are. Here we are. Yeah, man, I got a busy week coming up. It's I'm going to be out of town going to Chattanooga, Tennessee, see what's poppington down there. And, yeah, man, I was invited to, speak at a conference, like one of these like professional conferences that I never, ever, ever go to because I happen to, I never seize the opportunity. You know what it is? I let my own prejudices get in the way of why I don't go to these like, professional functions. And I guess now that I'm invited to the big dance, I got to go. But what's the reality? The reality is that, they asked me to be one of the speakers because apparently I am, I guess I've earned that right or earned that respect or whatever. I don't, what do I know? You spend so much time just being yourself, I was going to say being yourself, doing yourself. But, you just spend so much time being yourself and, if you stick around long enough doing anything, I guess you get some flowers. And it's uncomfortable because who the fuck, I want everyone to pay attention, but I don't want everybody to be looking, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Sometimes it's just hard to take compliments from other people. And this is a professional one, and it's a good one. And, whatever, I'm not going to receive any awards or anything like that. But maybe a lot of thank yous. I'm going to try and what am I going to be trying to do? I'm going to be trying to make some more business contacts and do some other stuff. I have some good ideas for my business. I guess I've been getting off my ass in the last couple of months and, some of the good stuff has really been coming to fruition. I guess in the sense that I've just been making progress, move a muscle, change a thought. That's like one of the keys of, recovery, of just life in general. God don't deliver. What is that? Remember that thing where like you got that food or whatever? It's called God's love, we deliver. Yeah, it's God's love, but we deliver. You gotta make shit happen. You gotta take an action, and that's, and that's what I was doing on a pretty consistent basis. And here we are. Here we are. So, I have a couple of things going on like that. They're having these elections in the Polar Bear Club. And, they nominated me for one of these positions. One of the, I guess one of the, what would you call it? Like an elected official? I don't know. They're going to vote an officer. I'll be a group officer, Meanwhile, I've only been a bear. This is my first season as a full bear and second season swimming. And I guess I've demonstrated in that time that I'm somebody who could be trustworthy, reliable, good-spirited, and all of these other things that I find to be I don't know. I find to be, I I guess not shocking that I'm like that, because I try to be like that. I'm just not like that with myself. I guess I learned how to show up for everybody else and not so much for myself. And I think that's actually how it works, is if you show up for everybody as best you can and doing everything that you can, then, you know, eventually your own life gets better, you know? And I think that's it's a positive thing. You know, it's been I wouldn't say a rough couple of weeks. I mean, it has been a rough couple of weeks, you know. One of my kids is learning how to drive, the middle one, and I've taken him with me in the car twice, and then I realized that, you know, this is something else that I'm going to have to invest time in, because those driving schools where kids get a license, yeah, they teach them like the very rudimentary stuff, which is, you know, how do you operate the equipment? That's what they teach them. There's nothing more than that, you know? And, you know, so once they got in the car with me, I was like, holy shit, they fucking don't know anything, you know? And learning how to drive in New York City is not the same as learning how to drive how I learned how to drive. You know, I learned how to drive in a very unconventional way, which a lot of kids in the suburbs learn how to drive, you know, which was by, you know, stealing my parents' car. And I stole it so many times, and I got caught so many times, and I crashed so many times that, you know, my parents I don't know. When was the last time? How old was I the last time I crashed a car? Oh, no, not that time. That time I had a legit license. But first time I got caught driving that car, I used to just drive. And I learned how to drive like on a stick shift in the 7th grade. So how old was I, 12 or 13 years old? They weren't teaching me, so I was just kind of teaching myself. I had a group of friends that already knew how to drive. And they were in the neighborhood next to mine, and they knew how to drive. So they were like showing me a little bit on my parents' car and on some of on my parents' car and on some stolen cars. And so then in the morning, I would take the car, and when my parents would leave, and I would drive it around the block. I lived in like a cul-de-sac, which is basically like a big oval. It wasn't like a dead-end block. It was like a dead-end, almost like community. It was like a big oval. I don't know. I don't even think it's a quarter of a mile. Maybe. No, it is. It's more than that. Maybe it's like half a mile, right? All the way around. Yeah. And it was a big circle with houses in the middle, houses on the outside. So there was no traffic. And like 7:30, 8 in the morning, my parents would leave to go to work, and I would just take the car. And I would take the car, and I would practice shifting, because there were stick shift cars. And you know, when you're a kid, I keep saying, you know, I have to stop that. But when you're a kid, you don't realize how obvious you're being. So I would sit in the car, and I would hit the clutch, and I'd be shifting the gears without the car even on, you know, almost like practicing where the gears were. And, yeah, I would do that, and I'd be like, you know, under a trance of adolescence, if that's, you know, if that's a good way to describe it, where there's no consequential thing. There's none of that. It's just like a kid. You leave a kid with keys in a car and no adult supervision, guess what's going to happen? You know, I mean, there was no internet or anything at that time. You had to make your own fun. So I would just take the car, and I'd buzz the car around the block, I'd buzz the car around the block. Then I'd pull over, and I would stop by the bus stop at the bottom of the street. And the kids that were on my street that would take the bus, they would see me driving my parents' car. They're like, are you fucking... They must have thought, wow, either he's fucking crazy or he's fucking cool. But either way, that's just what I was doing. You know, my friends that already knew how to drive, I thought they were the coolest. You know, they were all the same age as me, One of them got left back, and he was just a year older than me. But other than that, we were all the same age, and we were driving. So then it graduated from that, taking the car around the block, and then I don't know how long it was, a week, a month, or whatever. Then I was taking that car in the street, and I was going down and around in all the other neighborhoods or whatever, and then, yeah. And what happens next? I was driving the car all the fucking time. When my parents were gone, I was driving the car all the time. I think about it now, like a 13-year-old kid driving a car. So one time, and this time I had I didn't have the stick shift. I had an automatic. My parents, I don't know why, but we had 2 Volvos, which were horrible cars. As far as, well, no. I mean, you can pick up bitches in a Volvo if you're in the 7th grade or the 8th grade because you're driving and nobody else is driving. But other than that, they were just, what did the commercial say? They're boxy and they're safe. So first time, I get a little brush with the law. I am driving with my friend from down the street. I think it was him. Yeah, I wanted to go see my other boy who lived like a mile away. So I'm driving and I'm in the Volvo station wagon. We used to call it the Puerto Rican Mobile. It was fucking brown. A brown Volvo station wagon with an I Love New York bumper sticker that I'll never forget. And, the radio station was like stuck on La Mega, 97.9. So that was it. And there was no tape deck in that car. You were listening to the radio. And I loved that car. Like when I was a kid, like my mom we used to drive back and forth to the Bronx all the time and every week. And I would, sleep in the back of the, whatever. So I'm driving this station wagon and, I'm in the 7th grade. So I'm either 12 or 13. Right. And as I'm driving, I'm going down this big hill. It's called Brick Church Road. A fucking cop goes past me the other direction. Now, he must have, I don't know why he looked at me or he looked. I didn't really look at him and him looking at me, but he must have because he wasn't that far behind me, past me when that motherfucker did a U-turn and hit the lights. And, bro, let me tell you, I hit the gas on that car. And I drove all the way down the hill, and then I made a right on whatever, Hempstead Road or something. Then there were all these other roads. Anyway, I zigzagged, and I drove in all these fucking side streets. And then I came out, and I fucking lost him for a minute. I came out, and he couldn't find me, man. I was dipping. This guy, he's fucking, I'm thinking about it now. I was dipping, and I came out on Main Street, Route 45, went to the corner Williams Avenue where my boy Chris lived, and I ran, I banged on the door. He's like, I think it was brother Victor, was like, yo, what are you doing? I was like, bro, open the garage, man, like the fucking police are chasing me. He was like, what? And he opened the garage, and I pulled the station wagon in there. We closed the garage, and that was it. I never got caught, but they had a spare screen door in the garage, and I broke that, so there was that part. I don't know who ended up paying for that or whatever, but yeah, so that was one moment, and yeah, I was sober that day that I did that. I think I was with my friend Zia, yeah, so, yeah, driving around in the woods, not the same as the city. Then what happens after that? Right? I keep driving all over the place, whatever. Then at the end of 7th grade during finals, I take either that car or another car, one of their cars. I was taking that car all the time, and I don't think I don't know if they didn't know or whatever. I don't know, but I just kept taking it. It was It's like exhilarating. It was impulsive. I was taking the car. I take the car. So I went to Kakiat Junior High School, and our nemesis was Pomona Junior High School. So what did I do? I went in the car with my same friend Zia, who's only a year older than me, right? But he looked a little older than me, but he's only a year older than me. Now, this is like in the early 90s, and you got like a skinny, white kid with baggy jeans, and, I was wearing all the whole outfit, I looked the part. So it was the 90s, man. And anyway, so I take the car during finals, 7th grade finals, and I take the car and I go to the Nemesis Junior High, and I pull up in there, boom, and I park the car in the lot, and I get out, and I'm just like, yo, what up? Looking for bitches, right? What else? What else is there? And my friend, who I love dearly, he's just going along for the ride. He's like a dork, like me. He's going along for the ride. But he was, I wouldn't say a dork. I don't know. He was just with it, But he was like a very smart kid. He ended up going to medical school and all this other stuff. And he had his life together, and he was brilliant. He was such a wonderful, wonderful friend, And he texted me for my birthday. That was so nice. It's like one of my oldest friends on earth. I love him so much. Pakistani kid. He was Muslim. So, yeah. And anyway, so we get up over there, and I'm not getting out of the car, saying, and it's pretty shocking when some of the kids in that school, some of them know who I am, because, that's the kid from the rival school, and I played sports. I played football. I did wrestling. You don't play wrestling. I wrestled, and I played baseball. And so, and I knew kids in that school, even though they were our rival, and I wasn't super duper friendly with them. I had a couple of people over there. And I remember that within minutes, I don't know, it could have been 10, it could have been 2, it could have been 30. Man, the security guards, they came and they run and they just grabbed me like, yo, this kid is fucking driving a car. And they dragged me inside the school. And then what happens? Yeah, I know a lot of things happened, but I'm trying to just piece them sequentially and maybe not be dry snitching on myself. All right, so I'll tell this story. So, yeah, I go into the school. I think the police show up. I don't remember. Yeah, I think the cops showed up. And I'm being taken away. And, yeah, because I remember he told them, he's like, yo, just tell them I was driving. My friend Zia, he's like, just tell him I was driving, because he's only 1 year older than me. Like, it wouldn't even matter, And yeah, police came and whatever. Car stayed. I went. As I was leaving, I saw one half of a set of twins that I knew from the time I was 6 years old. When I was taking martial arts, they were also taking martial arts. And by this time, these twins were so fucking bad that they separated them. And one went to my school, and the other one went to this school. And I saw him, and he saw me, and he just gave me like the peace sign, like, yo, what up? It's going to be okay. I was like, all right. And then, yeah, that was it. So, my parents get involved and whatever. But that run-in kind of like changed the trajectory. Yeah, trajectory of the next couple of years of my life. Because then what happens is I don't even know if I got in trouble. I don't remember. But that kid, he was part of a crew that was 2 years older than my crew, and he saw that I was a little bit like them, unhinged, just a reckless kid. But they were like really crazy. His crew was like really crazy. Looking back at it, yeah, they were really wild. They ended up, going to prison. Him and his brother going to prison for a long, long, long time before we were even 18 years old. They went away. They took somebody's life. So, but that was like my introduction to more of the wild side of life. I see that kid sees me, then, we all find, my crew, we know them, we find them, then next thing you know, we're all standing around. It's summertime. My parents are like, whatever, I don't know. I didn't have to go to summer school or anything. I started hanging out on the other side of town. My friends that knew how to drive already, by this point, they start stealing cars, and I started learning how to drive on those cars. This is like, again, this has got to be 1992, 93. So we would take these cars and we would just swap plates with another car, and we drive the car for 2 or 3 days and hang out. And, I was, at this point, I was kind of like the only one that was like really smoking weed and drinking every day. I was an alcoholic from the fucking beginning. But I came from a home where you're allowed to drink like at this time I was almost allowed to drink in my house. That didn't happen until like the 8th grade, 14 or 15. That like they stopped, whatever. Anyway, so I learned how to drive on those cars. There were other people's cars. Yeah. So we would drive them for a few days and then leave them somewhere, and then drive find some other cars, drive them for a couple of days, leave them somewhere. Favorite cars were like, we had two that really stood out. We did this for like a whole summer. They would put, like, my parents had like a I think it was like maybe it was my sister's birthday, because it was in July. I know this was in the summertime. We had like big party in my house, and it was like nighttime, and the music is blasting, fucking salsa, and there's Puerto Ricans everywhere, drunk, whatever. My dad used to throw birthday parties with beer everywhere. He would have kegs and kegs of beer, and it'd be like Bacardi Light, who knows what other kind of party goods, whatever. They were never really giving like to my sister's friends or kids, but they weren't just like what, they just wasn't, nobody was watching anybody anyway. So I remember, because my friends, they pulled up in a gold Honda Accord, and the Honda Accord, it was nice, and they just pulled up here, and like I went down the driveway because they were like, yo, we got this Accord. And I just looked at my dad. I was like, oh, I'm going to go with my friends. And he was like, okay. And we just drove around all night in a stolen car, blasting music, looking for other 7th grade girls, 8th grade girls, whatever. Yeah. And I don't think, that car was also stick shift. So I learned how to drive on a stick shift. If you asked me to get in a stick shift now, it would never happen. So, but I learned how to drive on those cars. The older kids, they started to take notice that we were like, I guess about that life, but it was a different time. So we just, anyway, I just drifted away from all of those guys. They kept stealing cars, and then they graduated from, which was so bizarre. Okay. Please, somebody explain this knowledge. And again, if this is dry snitching, then fucking so what? I don't care. So they would take the cars and we would just leave them. We wouldn't even take them to chop them up somewhere or any. That would be like really smart. We would never do that. We were just having fun. We were just having fun. We wouldn't crash them. We have fun for a few days, leave it in a dead end block or wherever, and just go get another car. You know? And that was it. It's pretty disruptive to somebody else's life. You know? Yeah. Yeah. That's so anyway, so what happened was the older kids that I was telling you about, I start fucking around with them a little bit, and then they start bringing me, out of me and my crew, there was me and this other crazy white boy. His name was John. And we started hanging out a little bit with them, with the older guys, because we were the crazy white boys. They were like, these kids, they hung out, you know, by 7-Eleven and around those areas over there. And, yeah, and then we started drinking beer every day. It was one of those things where, like, you know, you could buy beer at any store. I was drinking 40s and 40s and 40s and 40s and 40s and smoking blunts. We'd buy weed and it'd be like fucking 16 heads on like fucking 5 blunts or something or whatever. Anyway, so that's what it was. But those friends that were stealing cars, then cell phones came out, and what they were doing, you know, for the next couple of years, is that they were boosting cell phones out of cars and selling them because you could get a lot of money for them. Me, I never did that. By that time, I was like, you know, doing other thing. I wouldn't even say doing other thing. I would do whatever it took to make money. I always had kind of like a legitimate job. Like I worked in my cousin's movie theater. I worked at a record store. I did this, that. But I would like buy drugs in one place and sell them in another place and, you know, make enough money that I could live like a wild 15-year-old kid. You know, name would be ringing out, and that's the truth. So, yeah, they were boosting fucking phones, and I was like, why are you? Because you could get a lot of money for a stolen cell phone at that time, you know. And this was like when it was Motorola flip phones, and you had like the antenna that you could just pull up, which was. Yeah, those were the days. And by this time, my parents had already lost complete control of me. I was all the way out the window. You know, I was alcoholic, drug addict. Every day, I didn't stop. Ever. I just never stopped. I stopped really going to school. I had problems there. No real, like, you know, I never had like problems with like other kids or whatever, or gangs or other shit, but I was non-compliant. I wasn't going to school. When I went, sometimes there was a fight, sometimes not. There was just trouble around me. And I was, under the fucking Svengali of Spring Valley and my adolescent lizard fucking brain. And guess what? Didn't help any of that. That, you know, even though I didn't have a lot of friends in school or these other things, I had a lot of friends in the street, and they were all the wrong fucking people. And guess what? I was one of the wrong people. But, you know, junior high school and high school girls, they like young, wild fucking boys. And that was a big carrot for me to continue on my way. You know, and I did. So, I was in 9th grade, and by that time I had already, you know, I wasn't heavy drugs, but I was like, never say no to drugs. I was drinking every day, smoking weed every day, all day. By this time, some of those older kids, you know, they were getting in real trouble. Like one guy, you know, pulled a fucking gun out in the middle of the mall and shot at somebody. Somebody else's brother killed another guy. It was getting a little bit hectic, you know. But I was still like, you know, skating in the gray area. And these older guys who were like my sister's age, you know, they would be bringing me to parties, and my sister would be there, and she'd be like, Jared, what are you doing with these fucking kids, with these guys or whatever, 14 years old, 14, 15, hanging out with 17, 18, 19-year-old kids. Because my sister was 2 years older than me, but she was 3 grades ahead of me, And, and they loved me because they were like, dude, this little fucking kid is crazy. And I wasn't crazy. I was just gullible. And under the influence, I would be like, yo, go hit that guy. And I would try, or whatever. And they would laugh. But yeah, so that was me. So by the time I was in 9th grade, I'd already been in a little bit of trouble. One of the nights we were out, again, I kept, I took my parents, I never gave them a peaceful moment, ever. I never gave them a peaceful moment growing up. Once I hit the 6th or 7th grade, never gave them a peaceful moment. They couldn't even go out to dinner. They go out to dinner. I take their car. I'm driving around with my friends, and one of my friends gets in the car. We're driving around, and somehow we smashed my dad's car into a bunch of fucking trees. And then I get out, and we start running, and we left the car. Like, that's what 9th graders do. They leave the car after they smash into... Thank God we didn't hit anybody. We just hit these trees, totaled the car. I had this... my head was bleeding. I had a big gash in my head. I run up to ShopRite where, my skin is leaking. My boy, this Portuguese kid, Danny, he was there, and he worked there. And he came outside with these bandages, and, that was it. He was bandaging me up. And then I was so mad because he was such a good guy. This guy, I think he was like a volunteer, like EMT or firefighter or something. He actually ended up getting a little bit famous, this guy, because somebody jumped off the Tappan Zee Bridge, and he jumped off after them. And he ended up, living and saving them and whatever. Anyway, so the police show up. I'm fucking there leaking, and then I come up with a 9th grade story, which is like these kids broke into the house and they stole my parents' car and they kidnapped me. That was my best thinking. They were like, yeah, fucking right, And, meanwhile, my parents, then they got to take me to a hospital, get me stitched up. My parents are eating fucking dinner on a Friday night. They're going out on for maybe, a couple of hours, and I turned their whole world upside down. Somebody comes into the restaurant like, yo, they called the restaurant, and they told my parents where I was at. And, yeah. Jesus Christ, man. I'm thinking about it now. None of my kids did any of this shit to me. So I don't have anything to complain about when it comes to them. So the point is that, I've been driving for a long time. Now, because of that, those arrests... I'm trying to think how many there were that were automobile related. Maybe 3 or 4. At that time, riding around in a stolen car, the charge was joyriding, I think it was, or whatever. I don't know. I don't remember getting in that much trouble. I'm sure I was in some kind of trouble, but I never had to do probation or anything like that. Because, there was only one time that we were caught in an actual stolen car. There was one time, we had a red Corolla, and we were going through a fucking police, like the police did like a sobriety thing, and we were rolling through there, and it was just me and fucking black-ass Marlon. And I'm not saying that in a racist way. I'm saying that was his fucking nickname. So anybody back home knows who he is. Yeah, and he was driving, and the car was stolen, and they just checked, and we were sober, and they just let us through, But anyway, so he ended up getting caught with that car, and then I don't know how he started telling on people or whatever he did. We told him to ditch the car, but he wanted to put a system in there. So when he goes to put the radio in the car, the police jumped out because they found the car or whatever. A few weeks later. Anyway, so they pulled me out of school because he was snitching, and they put me on the stand like if I knew about the car and this, that, or whatever, which was wild. And, I just said, as long as I know, all that I knew was Marlon said it was his mom's car. He was already being charged with, stealing the fucking car. So I just said, look, I played dumb. I said, listen, he picked me up. He's my boy. I thought it was his mom's car. And that was it. Either way. So all these run-ins happen. So I couldn't get, back then you can get a learner's permit at 16 years old. I think, 16 you can get a permit, and you can get a junior license, which meant that you could drive but not past 9 o'clock. So if I had a permit, I could drive, but somebody with a license had to be in the car with me. And then once you get your junior license or whatever, you can drive but not past 9. So because I had this history of all these reckless driving incidences, I wasn't even somehow with the DMV or whatever, they kept my record. I was not even allowed to get a driver's license of any kind until I was 17, I think. I was allowed to get a permit. Permit. I don't know. Yeah, so I already knew how to drive. So even when I go, by the time I'm 17, my life is so unmanageable. I am a full-blown alcoholic, pothead, taking psychedelics. My hunger for more debauchery was amplified. We're on like a 7 by this point. I was already 17. My son was probably almost 2 years old. I had a kid before I had a driver's license. That's so crazy. I'm thinking about that now. I had a kid before I had a driver's license. Yeah. That's how much I was running around in the street. I didn't know anything about sex or responsibilities or whatever. I just knew I need to get money so I can live this life, so I can be this person, so that chicks will dig me and people will like me because I'm this person. And it was just that cycle. And when you're young, you can live in that loop, And I was outrunning serious consequences. I mean, I wouldn't call my son a serious consequence, but he was a byproduct of that whole lifestyle. And it was my friend's older sister that I had baby with, And yeah, that's a whole nother series of podcasts, but whatever, which is fine. She's lovely, and I got a lot of love for her. And my son is the greatest. So, so by the time I get my license, I'm 17 years old, thrown. I'd been kicked out of my house from my parents because and rightfully so, because they were, it was like self-preservation. You have this one kid who at the time was my sister, who by this time she's like, down at Duke University, studying political science and history, all these huge accolades, everything. I mean, everything. And then you got me, that, my appetites, my insatiable appetites, is that the right word? Insatiable? All right. I couldn't satiate, whatever that means. Those appetites led me to the fireworks, to the street. And it was a beautiful experience for me. Very tough for my family, and I mutilated them. My parents, I mutilated them. I took advantage of every opportunity that they ever would try to give me. I spit in the face of any kind of help that was coming. I think a couple of times they tried to get me into some kind of therapy. Obviously, alcohol and drugs were never mentioned because I come from a home where you were allowed to drink. My mom was my best. My mom was one of my. She's number one. There's a lot of people who are tied for number two, but my mom was my number one drinking buddy. You know, yeah. To this day, you know, if I could drink with any, I don't want to drink, and I have no desire. But if I could ever drink or get fucked up again, I would love it to just be with my mom. You know, drinking fucking cold ass Budweiser cans. I'm sitting in the kitchen frying pork chops and playing Chinese checkers. You know, she never gave up on me, man. She always loved me, but I was ripping apart their home. So I left, or they asked me to leave. You know, and I went and I lived with this girl for like 6 months. By this time, I was already thrown out of high school. You know, I had to go to this alternative high school, and I was living with this girl, you know, behind the flea market, or near the flea market, off a ridge, by the library. Yeah. And then I found another group of friends, and we went down another rabbit hole, and that's all I was doing, was just moving from group to group, friends to friends, crew to crew, you know, and the one constant thing was partying. And, yeah, some of us are sober now, including myself. So by the time I actually got my license, it wasn't that long. I got my license. I got my car. I think I told you guys this before. Took my bar mitzvah money. And I guess my parents, they were just trying to help me out as best they could. You know, they're like, dude, if we give this kid some stuff, maybe he'll learn that he needs to fucking behave. I would behave for a little while. I don't know. But I was like, dude, Dad, I want this car. He's like, all right, well, we have to, I guess I don't even know where the money came from till I was older, actually. So I don't want to fabricate. But they got me a car. And by this time, I was working, you know, I had a labor job. I was working at a roofing company. It was the summertime. My first car was in 97. I think graduated high school. Or no, it was like a year before I graduated high school. And yeah. It was a 1992 Acura Legend. And that was the car. And man, then you know, a whole nother series of madness happens, because now I have an actual car that's my own, and, you know, a beautiful car. They spent my bar mitzvah money on that car. I wish, you know, well, I don't wish they would have invested it for me, but I remember I felt like a man. I was like, Dad, I'm working at fucking A&J. At this time I was making $280 a week cash, working on a roofing and gutter truck, and then I was like selling pot or selling some coke here and there or doing this other shit, selling stolen stuff. You know, so I could afford the car. Maybe I was making $700-800 a week or something in 1996 as a 17-year-old kid. So I wasn't no fucking big time. But I was at every party in that car, so I was like, dude, I can make the payments for the car. The car payment was like $200-something a month. I was giving him money every month. And that was it. Within a week, I had fucking the blackest fucking tint on that fucking car that we got from my man Sam, the tint man. He has a younger brother, Danny, who's a good kid now. And he has like one of these mobile car detailing businesses, like with all the dope shit, like the shit you see on Instagram. He has one. It's called HCS, hydrophobic cleaning services or whatever. So if you're in Rockland, look that up. You know, he's a good guy. You're gonna pay fucking money because he's gonna do an amazing, insane, fucking good job. But either way, so I had the tent. You know, within another week, I had a system. You know, I think they were Crossfire. Yeah, 2 Crossfire 12s in the trunk. Replaced the speakers in the car, tweeters, everything. You know, I had fucking glow sticks underneath the seat, so the floor glowed orange. I had the fucking DVD player with the fucking gooseneck. You know, and the DVD player was underneath the passenger seat. It was like a party on fucking wheels. And, you know, drinking and driving happened. You know, I went to jail a couple of times. Within the first year of me having the car, I got 2 DWIs within 2 weeks. You know? And, yeah. Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, I got locked. I went to jail twice for them. But at that time, you could just, you know, I got one of them dismissed. And then the other one, I had 6 months, no license. It cost $10,000. I was so grateful. My dad, I guess he put up the money, and then I just had to pay him back. And he was like a fucking Tony Soprano every week. He was like, "Where's the money?" And I think I gave him like $150 a week for like fucking, you know, until it was paid off. He was relentless about it, which was good in hindsight. Saying that to say this. You know, none of my kids, again, have ever done anything remotely close to any of that kind of madness. And I need to remember that. You know, they all had the same deal. You get a license, I'll get you a car. Now, the middle one, who is 24, them, finally got their license. And whatever, they smoke pot, which is fine. I don't mind. And they drink here and there. But I had to have a sit down with them and tell them, listen, you cannot be under the influence of anything and operate that car. You cannot, because they are not. Number one is, this is still how I have lizard brain, because I said, number one, I said, they are not fucking around anymore. You will go to jail. They will take your car. They'll do whatever. Like you, it's fucking crazy. It'll be over if they catch you once. And I know because, you know, I am now in recovery for a long time, and I see what these motherfuckers come through with DWIs. They're not fucking around. I remember there was even a time in the city where the city would literally take your car. So I had to sit down and tell them in their face, yo, you cannot drink and drive, period. I don't care. You leave that car wherever it is. If you decide to have a couple of pops, you don't have to be hammered. You know, when I got my DWIs, I went to the classes that they have and all that stuff, and I learned what the legal limits were, and now the legal limits are lower. But at that time, it was like 0.10, you know, and now it's like, I think 0.08 or whatever, which is nothing. That's like one beer in 1 hour. You can blow and you can boop, and that's it. You go to fucking jail. So, you know, I learned a little bit about that stuff. So I told them, I said, you cannot ever. I said, I don't know what tests they have now for weed, but they're going to be testing these motherfuckers from hitting these pens and all this other shit. Because when I was out there and I was a kid, you know, bro, I smoked weed driving in my parents' car when I was in 8th grade, whatever. And like, you know, so if I got pulled over, it would be very apparent that I was smoking weed. But because it stunk like crazy and like, what, you know, blunt fucking smell in the upholstery, man. You can't get rid of that shit, you know. But now they have all these other ways that these kids, they hit these pens, they do this, that, whatever. So like, if they decide to bring you in because they think you're under the influence, they give you a test, you're going to go to fucking jail and it's going to be over. My boy, Liam, he told me, he was like, listen, the deal you make with them is that, like, if you get caught under the influence in that car, you are on your own 100%. I will not buy you another car. I will not blah, blah, blah. If it gets, like, that's it. You get one shot with that. And I was like, in my mind, I thought that was a little bit harsh, only because of my own history, you know, because I totaled, I think, over my whole history, I crashed one car 2 times. The second time was totaled. Then I ran another car into a fucking telephone pole. And my mom said yesterday when we were joking about it, when I was in my cousin Mondo's house, that when I crashed that car into the telephone pole, I was with my boy Frankie, and not only did they have to fix the car, the town charged them $5,000 for the fucking telephone pole. You know? Crazy. Yeah, man, they were so good to me, you know, and as best as you can be with a maniacal, you know, drug addict, alcoholic kid. Now, if that was all that stuff was happening this day, they would probably, hopefully, whoever it is, they would just get sent away. So, you know, I'm saying that because I have a 24-year-old kid. We getting in my fucking car, not even my car, like my work car, like a fucking minivan, and we're driving. And they fucking suck, bro. They suck just because they have no experience. At 24, we're driving around the block a few times, and they're doing pretty good. They didn't hit anything. They didn't get too nervous, you know, whatever. But they're like what a 16-year-old girl would be driving with their dad in the car. But they're 24. So I'm happy. I'm grateful that it doesn't happen on my time. It happens on God's time and their time. When they're ready, I guess they're ready for this part of their life. You know, they're like, or whatever, however they identify, and which is fine, you know. So I was like, yo, we can get you a Subaru Outback. I want them in something safe, like an Outback or Honda, like little SUV, or a Toyota, like a RAV4, some shit, you know, that'll go 1,000,000 miles. I told him, I said, this is the budget. We got to make sure you're competent driving. And from this day, which was like maybe a week ago, 90 days, you have to get your shit together. Make sure you have a job, because you're going to pay for the fucking gas and whatever. My job is to buy the car. You're going to pay for I'm going to basically treat them like a 16-year-old kid or a 17-year-old kid from 1997, which is that, like, you know, a middle-class parent would buy their kid a car, and the kid had to pay for the fucking gas and whatever. Maybe the parents put them on the insurance. We're just going to give them liability. I'll pay for that. I don't mind. And I want them to go out there and experience life. And it's a different time, and they're a different person. And it's a beautiful life. You know? It really is. When I think about it, any time that I get frustrated, I'm like, bro, it doesn't have to be extreme. They didn't have to be how I was, you know? But they don't have to be, in my mind, I'm like, dude, these kids are like, I call them like developmentally delayed, you know? But no, the truth is they're going at their own pace. And again, if they did any of those things that I fucking did, whew, I don't know. My son didn't do any of that stuff, but he don't drive. And my little one, she just got accepted to FIT. So she's the one. I told my wife when I met her, I said, the middle kid is already old enough, 13, 14, that they were defiant. They're not going to take any advice or listen or whatever. But the little one, the 7-year-old, we can fucking save that one. And we did. They're crushing it. You know, they're crushing it. Going to go to school for jewelry manufacturing and design. And they worked so hard, and they did everything. Yeah. They're it. You know? Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Easter Sunday. Like and subscribe on all podcast platforms. We have some more interviews coming up. Don't forget to share our YouTube page also, The Sober Experience. I'll see you guys when I get back from Chattanooga. And I'm going to try and hit some meetings and shit down there. And then just like not be like a AA rock star. We're like, oh, there's the guy from New York. He should speak. And I'll try to just go there and be cool, be anonymous, have some steaks, have some cigars, make some connections, make the best out of my days, out of my life. You know, it's a blessing. I'm fortunate even to still be around. You know, that was, you know, I just told like a 16th of what really happened, you know, and how bad it was. But, you know, we're blessed today. Anyway, I love you guys. Peace.